Obviously, FaZe is never far from the headlines. They're always doing something. And it kind of blows my mind. Like, I've said this before, but just in case you're new to the video or new to the stream or whatever, I'll repeat it. I can never accept anything that aggrandizes FaZe. I think they are the most scummiest, repulsive esports organization that has ever existed. I think what they've done in terms of influencer culture has been almost entirely negative. There isn't a single unethical practice that they haven't engaged in at some point, whether it's saying they're going to make a game, taking the money, they're not doing it, whether it's crypto pump and dumps, NFT bullshit, whether, you know, lying about competitors and influencers' ages, just absolute outrageous, not to mention just generally terrible role models. The CSGO Wild thing, using a skin casino to fund a CSGO team that they didn't even ever admit to until long after there could be any repercussions for it, and everyone fucking knew anyway. Yeah, just awful. Just an awful organization. But here's something that might interest you. As you get older and you get perspective, you know, people can be pieces of shit and also be victims sort of simultaneously. Like, you can be a scam artist and somebody above you that controls your paper can be scamming you. And this is essentially the territory we're going to get into, talking about FaZe Rain, not the CSGO player, but one of the original co-founders. And that claim is something I have a little bit of insight into, where I can tell sort of a little anecdote that I've never talked about before publicly. But as I say, sort of extricating myself from the business slowly but surely. So we'll talk about it. So FaZe Clan is arguably the biggest esports organization in the world that shaped and inspired how a modern gaming or esports organization should be built. Now, I don't dispute that. There's some truth to that. If you were to just have a surface level understanding of FaZe and didn't know any of their history, you would certainly think that way. The thing that really upsets me about FaZe is that despite everything bad that they've done, they still continue to get these ridiculous brand deals. You know, you've got FaZe, members of FaZe in DC Comics in a cringeworthy Batman crossover. You've got them doing deals with McDonald's. It's like, what would it take for you to not want these people anywhere near your brand? Like, what would they have to do? And obviously, they recently just went public. You can buy into FaZe, you can get on the fucking stock. You know, you can buy FaZe stock. It did plummet. It's not been a great launch from what I know. Obviously, Snoop Dogg, I believe, was a brand ambassador ahead of that. But yeah, certainly what they're very good at doing is just moving on from their scandals and controversies. They are very good at doing brand deals that get you talking about that. You know, like when they were on the Sports Illustrated cover and, you know, everyone was wanking off about it, and none of the people on the Sports Illustrated cover were any of their esports competitors. It was all their influencers, and everything in the Sports Illustrated article was about their influencers, you know? So, yeah, they're certainly, the model can certainly be used for good. FaZe have pretty much always applied it to evil, to basically get their very young, aspirational audience who look up to people, you know, like Banks, like Rain that we're going to talk to, and they behave like them, and they get that paper, get that bag, they trust them, they'll buy anything they tell them to, they'll do anything they tell them to, and we've seen this time and time and time and time again. So yeah, fuck them. And obviously, as you guys know, I was going to be, if the Tfue case, the Fortnite competitor, if the Tfue case had gone to court, if they hadn't settled, I was going to be called as an expert witness by Tfue's counsel. I was going to be in there in the court case to basically list everything about FaZe, but that never happened because they settled, so I never got to go through with that, which I would have really, really welcomed doing, frankly. Anyway, one of the founding members of the organization, Norden Shat, aka Rain, has exposed the organization in his latest video. After a month long of teasing, Rain has undergone a fair share of controversies himself with his substance abuse and has chosen to bring certain information to light that has shaken the industry at the cost of exposing him to the risk of a defamation lawsuit. Almost 2 weeks ago, he said people are going to want to kill him with what he was about to expose, but then that was followed by silence. It took him this long to finally put everything into a video and upload it. So let's just talk a little bit about that. Obviously, if you were around at the time, there was serious worries about this young man's, or not so young man anymore, I guess, but certainly younger than me. But this young man's mental health. There is a culture among American influencers and just esports in general, very big Adderall culture, and it was said that he'd been abusing Adderall. Now, obviously, one of the issues with that is, it's a very potent drug. It's a amphetamine. It can have long-term mental health repercussions. People thought he was going to potentially commit suicide. He was saying a lot of very worrying things. And thankfully, this time, we witnessed a breakdown where people around him say what you will about FaZe and the orbiters of FaZe. At least this wasn't exploited for clout. At least he wasn't rolled out on Drama Alert or anything like that. He got help and apparently went to a facility and was looked after. And the story had a happy ending, which is good, right? Definitely, whatever I think about FaZe, I don't want anyone to get hurt or to be permanently damaged or anything. Now, that obviously puts things in a different perspective, because I think a lot of people, their reaction when they saw him saying, I'm going to expose FaZe, that was similar to what he'd said during the previous episode, and that people are going to want to kill him. Obviously, this is sounds a bit like a paranoid fantasy, my dude. So I think I saw on the original tweets there were a lot of reactions where people were going, oh no, he's off his meds or whatever, and being really reductive about mental health or whatever. But he wanted to make it clear that no, this is indeed an issue. He is going to expose FaZe eventually. It's not a ploy for attention. That's what he says. And he did put this video out, which we'll watch now. Now, the problem I've got with this video, and you'll get there very quickly, is it doesn't really say anything. And for me, I like my exposés. I'm old-fashioned. I like my exposés to actually expose things. I like information and substance to be there. Again, I'm wild like that, But anyway, you can listen to him in his own words. I won't play it all.
Making this video so I at least can explain some things before I go into detail for detail. I know a lot of people are saying, you're milking this, just tell us already, This is a decade-long problem, man, with a lot of legal shit around it. So now it's turned into multiple problems. It's not just the initial problem I had in the beginning, it's a lot deeper than that. And yes, I'm gonna say this now because they're probably gonna try to say, well, he's only doing this because we owe him money and he's mad. They do owe me money, yes, and they haven't taken care of me, yes, and the money that I bought the Counter-Strike team for, it took them 6 years to pay me back, yes, I never got $1 or a brand deal, yes, that's all true. They're gonna say that, and that is a frustration of mine, but I obviously held that in for years. I held that frustration in for years, and it was never...
Now, he's glossed past it at super rapid speed, talking at super rapid speed, as is his way. But just in case you missed it, essentially he's saying it took them years to repay him the money that he sank into the CSGO team. There was a lot of back and forth about that behind the scenes, as I seem to remember. And he also said there, if you heard it, he never got paid a single dollar for any of the brand deals he brought in, which could mean anything. It could mean that when he brought in a deal for the org, it funded the org and he didn't get any of it. Or he could be talking about individual brand deals where people sponsored him directly and the money was going to the org. It's not clear which one he means, but certainly the latter is a lot worse than the former. So, but anyway, he'll talk a little bit more at similar pace.
Never the reason that I was going to do this or speak publicly, because if they just owed me money, I would have handled it a different way. This is a lot deeper than that, and a lot of my brothers don't see the actual issue here. They are being taken advantage of. I have to be careful with what I say. So it's, yes, I did get fucked over, but that's not it. And what made me think about it is dude, if I'm one of the biggest shareholders, I'm one of the founders, I'm one of the main people of this brand, and they're gonna fuck me over, who else won't they do that to? And when I said it's easier to sit back and take the money, I didn't make money. It's not what I mean, but I do have shares that are worth money right now. Who knows what the future holds, right? Who knows what the future holds? I just don't feel like this is a very halal interaction. I don't feel like this is very transparent, safe, honest. I don't feel none of that. It's a lot of like reassurance of stuff that's never gonna come true, and every single person knows that, but they still fall for it. I don't know why. It's the corruption in the background. It's people that get involved that aren't part, like they're not like us, bro. And that's the reason I'm fighting so hard, is because I'm fighting for the future me's. People that are like me, people that sacrifice their life, their childhood to do this shit and to build this shit. They deserve what comes, not the fucking people that were talking shit about us 10 years ago saying you guys are wasting your time, then come in now and own most of the shit and give themselves what they want, take advantage of us because we're dumb and young and don't know business like that. I don't want that to happen to you guys. I want to learn that lesson. I want to take the L, which I already did, by the way, and teach you guys about it. That's what I've said about everything. With my injury, with everything in life, every L I've took, I try to spread the wisdom that I got from that to y'all. That's why I do all this, and I feel like it should show more because I'm a big shareholder and I'm willing to give it all up for this, because I care, because I genuinely care about FaZe. I care about what it did for the community. I care about how it just opened up so many doors for a lot of people for different things. I think it's beautiful, and I want it to always mean that. I don't want these people to come in and ruin the brand that I sacrificed my childhood for. I don't want people to come in and just milk it and do collab after collab that do bad, by the way, but it's just like they think the logo has a fan base. Like the logo is a person. Everyone's like, oh my god, I can't wait to see the logo. No, the logo represents a collection of people that make people feel a certain way. That's what the logo was. Like, they don't get this shit. They're not from our world. They don't consume our content. They don't feel the same way we feel. They don't really care about our fans. They're numbers to them. I've met, how many fucking fans have I met in my life? I don't even fucking know. Since I was 15 years old, I met my first fan. I meet them all the time. I love you guys. I see you guys in person. Any person that's ever met me in real life, tell them how I've treated you. For real. I love my fans. I know I do. And all my fans end up being the creators or the fans, right? They end up being consumers and they end up supporting FaZe and all these brands. But they don't even know who they're supporting at this point. Like, people support it thinking that you're helping out your creator, but you're not. You know, when you think.
So we can leave it there. Yeah, it does go on in a similar way, and there is little of any sort of factual importance in it. But what he is talking about essentially is that he feels that him and some of the other founders have essentially been frozen out of FaZe, and that they're not getting the money that they're owed. The deals that they have been pushed into are exploitative in some way, and he's gonna eventually, at some point in the future, who knows when, he will expose it all. Probably worth noting that video is now unlisted on his YouTube, but obviously, because it's embedded into this news story, I was able to just play it to you anyway. So you have to know a little bit about FaZe history to understand what he could potentially be talking about. And I obviously have been around a long time. I'm the old man of esports, the old reporter in esports. So FaZe was created in 2010. It was a Call of Duty clan, essentially. It was called FaZe Sniping, was its original name, I believe. And basically, it was founded by 3 players, and they used to do trick shots in Call of Duty and upload the YouTube content. Fast forward a couple of years, they get 1 million subscribers, and so now they start entering into esports competitions. They start putting teams together to basically play in, you know, Call of Duty, and I think even they might have had like some real early amateur dabblings in Counter-Strike, although I'm not 100% on that. But anyway, it was never a company. It never had a corporate structure to it. Basically, in, I want to say 2014, they decided they were going to change that. They built a corporate structure. You know, they put in a CEO. They put in a COO, that was Banks, and they rented a big shared house, and they just started snowballing, making a load of content. And FaZe was a huge brand by 2014, and obviously the only way in terms of popularity was up. But in 2015, and I wrote about this, and it's interesting because if you talk to Ocelot, he's got some great stories about this time, because you may remember the original FaZe team in CSGO was G2, were Gamers 2, and there was a whole bunch of bullshit in the background that was going on about that move. But anyway, I wrote about it at the time. You can find reports. Unfortunately, they're on the bad website. shit. So anyway, yeah, in 2015, there was a Norwegian social media platform called Hubrik, which was run by a guy called Seb Gwurtz. And they decided they were going to become the principal investors in FaZe Clan. This is where Lee Trink, our good friend, FaZe the fuck up. This is where he enters into the story. And basically, that whole deal came in. They got themselves a team. The Gamers 2. They got into E-League, I think, as well. And they competed in MLG and all of this stuff. And basically, at that time, there was some real dodgy shit going on with the acquisition. I think this is public knowledge. Don't think anyone's talking out of turn here, but I might be. So if I am, apologies. But basically, what happened during that time was Banks wasn't very well. He himself was having some problems, some issues. I do believe he's publicly talked about them. Again, they were related to substance abuse. Again, I will sympathize with anyone going through substance abuse issues. At that time, when that deal went ahead, there were a lot of people intimating behind the scenes that the deal took advantage of Banks, Banks's, state, his, mental state. And certainly, if the timeline matches up to my understanding, I can certainly see why that would be true. And then on top of that, it turned out Hubrik had told bunch of lies about their numbers. And there's loads of lawsuits. You can just go and get these lawsuits, all the legal papers related to FaZe. If you just go to, if you have access to a Pacer account or something like that, you can just type in FaZe Clan from Delaware, where they're incorporated, and you can just look at all of the lawsuits and read about this stuff. But basically, it turned out that social media platform was misrepresenting its numbers, misrepresenting what it could do, because essentially what they were going to do at that time, FaZe Clan was going to create essentially its own Twitter, its own social media platform. It was going to be built out of Hubrik. They thought it already had a good user base. It didn't. It was all smoke and mirrors and bullshit. Anyway, the deal at that time was dubious, and people thought they got ripped off. But then in 2018, they'd severed all ties with the Norwegian dudes, got some venture capital funding. There was a bunch of musicians came in via a VC group, a guy called Greg Selko, who is the founder of Karma Loop. He came in as president. And so what I think has gone on is between the Norwegian deal and the deal that came after the Norwegian deal, once they managed to get rid of Seb Gwurtz and the Hubrik element, is the original influencers have essentially been pushed out and not been given healthy financial reimbursement for the brand that they built. Essentially, they didn't even own it at that point, and they've probably been taken advantage of a little bit by businessmen. Now, this is the bit of new Richard Lewis law. There was a story, I can't remember which one it was. I think it was around Tfue. I think it was when I was doing the report on Tfue. And basically, I put loads of stuff out, pretty much saying what I always will say. FaZe is garbage. They are a terrible example to everyone in our industry. Their success is an insult to our industry and potentially harmful to the young adults within it, as they have proven they don't care about their fans at all, and they only see them as walking bags of money. That's it. And I think guys like Banks, when you hear stories like, for example, the time he got into that issue in the bar and he went and he review bombed the bar and told a lie and they had to release the CCTV footage, or he smashes up a hotel, a suite in Vegas, and just pays off whatever it takes. These are terrible examples to be setting young people, right? So during that time, when I was saying all this publicly, Banks actually reached out to me and said, will you just listen to me? For some reason, he wanted me to like him. I don't know why. And so Banks called me up. It was on Discord, and me and Banks ended up having this super long conversation where he repeatedly kept using this phrase. Well, there was two phrases he kept saying. One was, if we went out for a drink with each other, you would like me. And I kept saying to him, I would never accept the offer to do that because I think you're reprehensible, right? and the other thing he kept saying was, you don't know how we got fucked. And I said to him, because I'm a fair man, I said, I might not like you, and I might call you on your bullshit. But if you've got a story to tell me, if what I suspect happened to you did happen, tell me, and I will critically pull apart every stitch of evidence, and I will write up the truth, and it'll come from a credible source instead of just more drama alert baiting, clout seeking, back and forths on YouTube, monetized argumentation. For whatever reason, he didn't want to do it. I suspect because at that point they were jammed up with at least 3 lawsuits I can think of. So I've got to believe what Rain is talking about is related to that. Because listen, I totally 100% believe that when that initial buyout from the Norwegian entity happened, Banks was definitely not in a fit state, by his own admission, to be making any big business decisions, and he was essentially just pushed off to the side while other people got this deal pushed through. And then if something similar happened to all the other founders in 2018 when the next set of money came in, then yeah, that sucks, because these dudes did build this brand. Now, they used it for garbage things, they've scammed people. I'm sure no one's going to shed any tears if they themselves got ripped off. But come on, we're all grown-ups. We all know that 2 wrongs don't make a right. So I'm very interested. I hope Rain does go ahead and actually give some substance to what he's claiming, because yes, no one's going to kill you over you saying FaZe ripped you off, and that's it's not that. And so the only thing that can happen is a lawsuit. And guys, you probably should have had 1 or 2 of those in your past already with the shit you've done. If you haven't, consider this very, very good. Consider 1 to be incredible. So I would absolutely urge him to come out and just be very candid about it. Remember, the other thing he said was that somewhere in that video, they wanted him to sign an NDA. As well, I think it came up when he was doing his spiel at the start, that they wouldn't give him any money until he signed an NDA to agree not to talk about how he'd been fucked out of money, which is now remember, an NDA can't compel you to not talk about illegal, immoral, unethical, these types of things. They're not, they are often used that way, but you can certainly, I'd be very interested to see what a court, particularly a Californian court, would make of you violating an NDA to say I was getting ripped off the entire time. Pretty sure the court's going to be on your side on that one. So yeah, I'm hoping he's gonna come out with it. He says here as well, this isn't true, of course, this little bit here. The incident has sent shockwaves in the world of gaming and esports. None of the members of FaZe has officially released a statement, but needless to say, they're unhappy. What happens in the coming days will dictate how an organization as big as FaZe will deal with its own creators moving forward. And so, yeah, it hasn't really made waves, especially because it's coming from Rain. Now, if 1 or 2 of the other original FaZe people would have sort of come out and say similar things, now we're talking. And as I said, I'm more than willing to advocate that at that time, yes, there was some absolute bullshit and fuckery going on. Hell, I would toss my chips in there with them immediately to tell that story, because just because you're a piece of shit doesn't mean you deserve another piece of shit to take advantage of you. That's not the right thing. So probably some more negative headlines about FaZe, but this time coming from the organization and not the influencers.